Hi, I'm Ashley Ferguson-Sheezer, and I'm a book and paper special collections conservator. And welcome to my work from home space, as all the Preservation Lab staff are currently working from home during the pandemic. So I co-manage the Preservation Lab with Holly Prohaska. We're a hybrid collaborative preservation lab, which means we work on both circulating collections that you check out and take home, as well as the special collection items that you only see in the reading room, such as the Cincinnati room at the public library. We have a staff of about 8 folks. In addition to that, we've got 5 to 6 student workers that help us with general circulating treatment and 4 volunteers. And it doesn't matter what institution the staff member works for, everybody works on everything from both institutions. We really utilize people's expertise, and it's usually the best person for the job. And we work on things equally from both of our parent institutions. The Preservation Lab is equally staffed, funded, and equipped by both PLCH and UC. And the lab is located on University of Cincinnati's campus. We're located in the basement of Linksome Library. If you're interested in checking out some pictures of the lab, since we're all currently home, there's a great Preservation Lab blog where there's a post where you can check out a virtual tour and scroll through some images to see our space. And then additionally, once a year during Preservation Week that's hosted nationally by ALA, the Preservation Lab opens its doors, and at the end of May, or beginning of May, or end of April is usually around the time for Preservation Week, we invite folks to come in and check out some of the projects that we work on and see what we do. So today you're going to get to meet a lot of the Preservation Lab staff, and you'll kind of get a sense of the range of services that we provide. But just to give you a quick overview, the Preservation Lab does single item conservation treatment like you'd expect. But we also prepare things for use beyond just general use. And that includes making sure that things are easily handleable by digitization staff so that they can get the best image to post online. That also includes general collections maintenance. That's kind of a larger umbrella term for disaster preparedness and recovery and response. For example, say there was a roof leak and some items got damaged by being wet from water. The Preservation Lab would actually go in and respond and conserve those items to make sure that they're safe for use in the future. We do integrated pest management and generally do environmental monitoring to make sure that the temperatures don't get too hot and the environment isn't too dry. And we also create archival preservation enclosures to buffer some of our most special objects against any potential changes in those environments. We also work collaboratively a lot, both within our institutions, but regionally and within the state of Ohio. We do some third-party conservation treatment for other cultural heritage institutions. We don't do work for private individuals. But for example, a couple years ago we worked with the Columbus College of Art and Design, and we did some treatment as part of an LST conservation grant. But we also helped consult so that the item didn't get damaged again in the future by creating a video of how to handle the item. It was a special book that had a foredge that was actually painted that could only be viewed when you flex the pages. So what we did is we created a video that the CCAD, Columbus College of Art and Design, could show people on tours rather than putting wear on the binding itself. We do a lot of work on exhibits, both within our institutions, but also when our objects are out for loan. Just last year we worked with the Taft Museum on showing some of the public library's lithographic posters, including one poster that received treatment to repair a hole in one of the magician's faces. and it was a poster that was composed of 3 different sheets of paper that ended up being a 7-foot tall poster. So it was a great collaborative effort between the lab and Taft Museum to put it in archival framing for our exhibition. And then just this year, we worked with the Cincinnati Museum Center to loan some of our most prized possessions. Our 4 Birds of America volumes went to the CMC for the exhibit called In the Audubon Tradition, and the Preservation Lab conserved them. We prepared them to make sure they were safe for transport. And then once they were there, we worked with CMC staff to turn the pages once a month to just protect these special items from any potential light damage. And then we also worked carefully to make sure these bindings were properly supported and cradled, just to prevent the bindings from any wear. In addition to all these things, the lab has a lot of knowledge, and so we end up teaching and conducting workshops on case-by-case basis. And so some of these include working at the University of Cincinnati to do tours and work with other classes, as well as partnering with the Ohio Preservation Council. Through the Ohio Preservation Council, we have presented through symposiums on history of the book, and we've taught workshops such as partnering with the state library on how to get special collection items conserved through an LSTA conservation grant, as well as teaching workshops just on how to make a corrugated clamshell or prepare things for exhibition. So that's just a brief overview. You're going to get to hear some of the projects that the Preservation Lab staff particularly enjoy working on, and you'll get to meet some other folks. So thank you.
Hello, my name is Casey Jansen. I'm a senior conservation technician at the Preservation Lab, and I've been with the lab just over a year now. Much of my work involves conducting conservation treatments on both general and special book and paper collections at the Public Library and the University of Cincinnati. One project that really exemplifies the type of work that I do was an in-depth treatment on an account book that is part of the Public Library Special Collections. This account book dated back to the mid-1800s, and as you can expect from a book of that age, it had many condition issues that made it almost unusable to patrons. When the book arrived in the lab for treatment, it was just a text block, so it was only the pages of the book. The binding, the outside of the book, was missing, and because of this, the text block had received quite a bit of damage over the years. There was evidence of water and mold damage. The spine and pages were very warped. There was also insect damage throughout the pages. All of these things were very clear evidence of damage, but another was less obvious, but incredibly important to consider when deciding a treatment plan. The account book was handwritten in a common ink of the time period called iron gall ink. Ultimately, iron gall ink can become very corrosive over time and can damage the paper that it is written on. So this book had a laundry list of issues, but this type of ink was ultimately what led us to decide to conduct a full disbinding, washing, and rebinding treatment. In the field of conservation, we are always learning new and better ways to treat the objects that come across our benches. One such treatment is called a phytate treatment, and it works to remedy a lot of the problems with iron gall ink that I just talked about. So once the book was disbound and all of the pages were separated, they were dry surface cleaned in preparation for the many baths that the pages would undergo during the phytate treatment. This series of baths involved both filtered water baths as well as various chemical baths needed to treat the iron gall ink. Over multiple days, I collaborated with many of the technicians in the lab to work all of the pages of the book through these baths. And truly, the pages of the book soaked in these baths just like you or I might take a bath, obviously with much more care and delicate handling. These baths not only helped stabilize the iron gall ink, but it also treated the mold and reduced some of the staining and discoloration of the paper. To finish off the treatment, all of the freshly washed pages were re-sewn back together as a text block, and it was rebound in a simple cloth binding. I think that this treatment is such a great example of how collaborative our work is in the preservation lab, and also how the treatments we are able to conduct can make these special, one-of-a-kind items more accessible to patrons and researchers. If you're interested in finding out more about the treatment, we have a ton of ways that you can do that. There are more pictures and videos at our Preservation Lab Instagram, at the Preservation Lab, in our phytate treatment highlights. You can take a more in-depth look at the treatment that was conducted and the images of the book during those stages at our Digital Resource Commons, the DRC. And if you're interested in one particular step of the treatment process, we even have videos about how to sew a text block on our media space.
Hi, my name is Jessica Ebert, and I've been working at UC Libraries in the Conservation Department for 12 years now. In the lab, I am a conservation technician, so that means that I treat both special collections items, but also general circulating collection items. So those are items that can be checked out by patrons from both UC and the public library. I'm also the supervisor of our student staff members. So those are UC students who are trained in-house in the lab to perform a wide variety of repairs on general circulating items. One of my other main responsibilities in the lab, and what I'm going to talk about today, is my role as photographic documentation specialist. Simply put, I take the before, during, and after photos for items that will be receiving treatment in the lab. These are special collections items primarily that receive interventive treatment of some kind. Photodoc, as we call it, is the visual representation of a book or object using digital conservation photography techniques, and it's the visual component to the written treatment documentation that is created for a special collections treatment. You might be wondering, is there a difference between digitization and conservation photography? Yes. Digitization usually primarily focuses on the content within the book, whereas conservation photography captures the condition and the materiality of the book. We see the book as a three-dimensional object with a history and a past that we need to capture and preserve through documentation. In order to do that, conservation photography specialists like myself use a wide variety of lighting techniques and specialized processes. Some of the specialized processes used in conservation photography include raking illumination, which can be great for showing off undulation and cockling of parchment or paper, or even really to show off a really bad tear. We can use transmitted light to show losses in paper or parchment, or to help us identify a watermark in handmade paper, which can tell us possibly when and where it was made. One of my favorite lighting techniques that we use in the lab is ultraviolet fluorescence, or UV. UV radiation is excellent for showing off condition issues like tide line staining from a water-damaged book, or tapes and adhesives that have been applied to an object over time. But it can also sometimes be really helpful for making faded ink inscriptions more legible. One great example of this is a music manuscript we received from the public library that had a really faded ink inscription in the back. But when we put it under UV radiation, that ink inscription just popped. I also have a series of RTI videos on the Preservation Lab's MediaSpace channel that show time-lapse of the capture process and also screen capture of the RTI viewer in action, which is super fun to check out. And I also run our Instagram and post as regularly as I possibly can. So I highly recommend you checking us out and following us at the Preservation Lab.
Hello, my name is Hyacinth Tucker and I've been with the Preservation Lab for 15 years. I have two primary functions with the labs. First is binding, dealing with anything going to and from commercial bindery that we contract with. Things that are more cost effective to send out that we can't do quickly or efficiently or in bulk in-house. I send them out, receive them, and make sure they get where they need to go. One of the other things that I do is conservation tech work. I've been dealing a lot with photographic ID and treatment over the last couple of years, learning how to identify different photographic processes, time periods, histories, and learning how to treat them in the best manner. A large amount of what is done is surface cleaning. A couple of recent projects that I participated in were the Madisonville class of 1907, which was a silver gelatin print that had extensive silver mirroring, which is what happens when silver bits start to break down and come to the surface of the photograph. You've probably seen it in some older photographs with heavy, heavy mirrored sheen. It was surface cleaned so that it could be digitized by the public library. Another reason that one might surface clean a photograph would be so that it can undergo further treatments. It's always best to start with as clean a palette as possible. One of the photograph projects that I participated in on that front was the George Reams project. The photographs were incredibly curved and needed to be humidified and flattened, but once you introduce any kind of moisture, it of course embeds any kind of surface dirt, of course can help speed the degradation of the photograph over the long term, which you don't want. So cleaning is always a very, very important first step to photographic treatments. Photo ID has been a really interesting way to dig into the deeper treatment of some of our valuable photographic items. I've been a photographer for many years, done a lot of darkroom work, so this has been a really interesting exploration of the other part of photography, what happens after the image is taken and the years pass by.
Hello, my name is Holly Prohaska and I've been at the Preservation Lab for 13 years and at the University of Cincinnati for 21 years. I am the Preservation Librarian and I co-manage the lab with the conservator Ashley Sheezer. Today I wanted to talk to you a little bit about a book arts course that the lab co-taught with the English department. The English department handled the seminar session in the morning, and in the afternoon the lab handled the hands-on experiential learning portion. Each of us took an area that we consider our area of expertise or an area in which we feel like we're pretty good at. The goal at the end of the class was for the students to create an artist book, and we were trying to give them the hand skills and the knowledge of the material to make that successful. So I'll show you a few of the things we did in the course. I led the paper making portion of the course, and this is a nice piece of cotton, 100% cotton rag paper. You can tell that it's handmade by the deckled edge. You can also tell it's handmade by the fact that it's not exactly perfect. Handmade things aren't always perfect, especially when we're trying to teach them in the class as demonstration. Next I want to show you a model that Katarina did. It's a model of a Nagamati, and she taught the students how to make this. It gave them an opportunity to experience leather, tool leather, and also let them play with papyrus, which is not a material a lot of the students knew about. And this is a simple tacketed binding. Think of tacketing as a very large staple going through a large section of paper, or papyrus in this case. Next off, we have Jessica and Casey taught how to do a hand-sewn structure. This is a link stitch, a French link stitch, and they did a wonderful job, and the students really started to understand that books were held together by sewing, not just adhesive. Also, Ashley taught the history of printing and how to identify printing. So those are just a few sessions we did. We did 9 total. But I also wanted to show you one of my favorite sessions, which is one I taught, and it's on movable structures. And I want to show you a few examples of movable structures. This is called a dissolving view. See if I can push that here. So just a really fun structure. The idea is that the students would be taught some interesting ways to make their artist books pop. In addition to dissolving views, we did some Vavels. I think some of you are familiar with Vavels in terms of color wheels. So here's a store-bought color wheel, but we also did handmade Vavels. I did a Vavel about how to make a zine. Seemed like a good idea since one of the course's sessions was how to make a zine. And then this is just a plain Vavel, just so the students could see a different kind of structure they could make. So Vavels were historically used to teach something, a lot of astronomy, medical textbooks, math, anything that could be simplified and also interacted with the reader. And we also did some simple paper structures. Here's a snake book. It's just a fun book that you cut kind of circuitously, and it's called a snake book. And we have a simple accordion. Whoop, upside down. Here's an accordion structure, so that's a nice structure to add. And then we did a one-page wonder. One-page wonder is just really fun. It's just a single piece of paper that's folded down to make a codex, but really it is just a simple single piece of paper that's cut down the middle. It really makes people think about collation, the order of the pages when they're printed. So that was fun. So what did I enjoy most about the class? The thing I enjoyed most about the class was the students. It was so wonderful to see them get excited or have an aha moment of how the book they're holding was created. And I'm really looking forward to seeing their final project. And I'm hoping that they will incorporate into their artist book all these historic structures that they were taught in our class. If you'd like to learn a little bit more, I suggest checking out the Preservation Lab's blog. We have a really robust blog, and we have some blog entries about the class, but we have a lot of general information about how to make structures as well as the bread and butter of the lab, which is, of course, conservation treatments. And if you want to get a hold of me and learn more about the book arts curriculum, please go ahead and do that. I'm at holly.prohaska@uc.edu. Wishing you well.
Hello, my name is Chris Voinovich, a senior preservation technician working for the Cincinnati Public Library. Along with everything that we all do every day, working in the lab, I love to make custom enclosures and displays and the supports for them called cradles, because they make a way for everyone to interact with the library's materials. You know, your library has so many things outside of the traditional book to offer. You should come and check it out. And check us out at thepreservationlab.org. Thanks, and see you soon.
Hello, my name is Katarina Figueirinhas, and I am the Assistant Conservator at the Preservation Lab. I've been working at the Preservation Lab for the past 5 years. And as an assistant conservator, one of my main responsibilities is to perform conservation treatment on special collection and medium rare books, both from the University of Cincinnati Libraries and the Public Library of Cincinnati and Hamilton County. Today, I wanted to highlight a conservation project that I work together with our conservator, Ashley Sheezer, and so far this has been one of my favorite projects since I started working at the Preservation Lab. This project was about the conservation treatment of an oversized map from the Public Library of Cincinnati, where it actually showed the business portion of Cincinnati downtown. This map was from 1863, and it came to the Preservation Lab to be prepared for digitization. I'm not sure if you're aware, but the Public Library of Cincinnati in Hamilton County has a large collection of digitized maps. They also have a very interesting collection of maps, the Sanborn maps, which you may be interested in checking them out. They've been digitized and they are available for viewing at the Public Library of Cincinnati in Hamilton County website in their digital collections website. The reason I chose to talk about the conservation treatment of this oversized map from 1863 is because this was a very in-depth project. It involved multiple stages of treatment and allowed me to learn new techniques and skills. The map had been previously torn, repaired, and lined in the back with a cloth. However, this was poorly done, so some of the areas of the map were actually overlapping and the information couldn't be seen properly. In order to align all the parts of the map and get it ready for digitization, we actually had to remove the cloth backing by humidifying the map. When we were able to remove the backing, we washed the map to remove the existing adhesive that was used in the past, as well as separate the overlapping areas. Once these were detached, we were also able to reduce some of the staining that you may have seen that the map had in the front, kind of a yellow staining. We were able to reduce some of this by washing the map. Once we were able to remove the cloth backing, remove the adhesive that we used in the past, and separate the overlapping areas of the map was dried under felts and prepared for being lined with a proper archival Japanese tissue that was commonly used in conservation. For this portion of the treatment, my co-worker Jessica Ebert, our photographic documentation specialist, has created a short video that will show you the process of actually lining an oversized map. As you can see from the last image, the map was fully lined and all the parts were placed properly and the information was able to be seen. Also, when this step was complete, we filled in some of the losses that the map had. Finally, the conservation treatment was complete, and the lining tissue around the map, which when we line the map, we always want to go with a tissue that is much bigger than the object itself. So then we trimmed the lining tissue to the edge of the map, and the map was encapsulated and returned to the Public Library of Cincinnati in Hamilton County to be digitized. I hope you have enjoyed this short view of this conservation treatment. In this case, this treatment was a perfect example of the collaboration that happens at the Preservation Lab. In some projects, multiple staff members could be working in the same project or asking for help in terms of documentation and other processes. If you would like to see the full video of lining this map, where it actually shows a lot of the different steps, you can see that video in the link below, or check out a great blog post at the Preservation Lab blog created by my coworker Jessica Ebert, where it talks about the project and it shows a full-length video of these steps. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you enjoyed learning about conservation. Thank you.